Today on Master Military Life, I have Miss Kimberly Johnson, who is a 14-year Air Force spouse. She has endured 6 PCSs, 2 deployments, all with 2 kids, and a 2-year stint in Germany, so going overseas. And today we're going to talk about how to manage an overseas move and how to manage the medical system when we're overseas as someone who went there when they were sick. So Kim, thank you so much for joining me on our season spouse series here as we kind of hopefully provide some guidance and advice to our newer military spouses facing these things for the first time.
Yeah, I'm really happy to be here, share my story.
Okay, Kim, so hit me with it. Like, when did you guys get married? How long were you together? Like, give me just a brief synopsis of military life with Kim and Bryce, who's your husband.
Yeah, so I met my husband, Bryce, when he was on casual before undergraduate pilot training. And we ended up going to a football game together and hit it off. And we dated long distance over Skype, which I'm dating myself, for 2 years. And that is actually how our wedding minister opened the entire ceremony. He goes, "Thank God for Skype." But we navigated all of that long distance and then finally realized we had to live in the same place if we were going to be getting married. So we moved in together in Las Vegas in 2010 and became engaged within like 2 months and then had a civil ceremony 4 months later, the Vegas Strip or Old Vegas, before Bryce deployed, and then did a big work church wedding 6 months later.
And so did a big church wedding and then settled into married life. How long were you guys then together in Nellis before your first PCS move together?
We got back, and within a few months, he got sent on a second deployment. So
Mm.
the first 3 years of marriage, like we spent as much time apart as we did together after 2 years of dating through Skype. And we ended up spending just shy of 4 years at Nell. He was at Creech. So we were in Las Vegas for 4 years. And then he found out that he was doing unmanned airplanes there. And he found out he was going back to manned airplanes to the C-130J, which was super exciting. And we got the assignment in Germany.
Wow.
And it was
Okay.
one of those, we made a dream sheet and we're like, you never get your number one pick. So Bryce is like, let's put Germany first. I'm like, let's do it. Yay, pipe dream. And then he calls me and I think he says it in German, like, we're going to do it. And I hear Deutschland. And I'm like, what's going on? And he just got off a night shift. And I'm like, are you tired? And he's like, no, we're going to Germany. And it's just like,
Oh
oh
my
my
goodness.
gosh.
It's like you never count on that. It's like I thought we were gonna go like San Antonio. Like,
Yeah.
okay, wonderful. So you get orders to Germany. How long is it between you getting orders and you're supposed to be leaving?
So he had to go through 2 different trainings. He had to do like a little re-up course to get back into a manned plane, and then he had to go through the schoolhouse in Little Rock before he'd be qualified to fly this plane. And so we get notification. I was working at a job I was very unhappy with and everything. And like they thought we were turning around in a few months to get out the door. So I ended up giving notice at my job. And then it's hurry up and wait. And suddenly the orders keep getting delayed, keep getting delayed, keep getting delayed. And I'm like, I guess I'm a puppy mom now. But we eventually kind of did a hopscotch right around the holidays and went the cross country drive to good old Columbus, Mississippi. Spent a few months there, made the move out to Little Rock, Arkansas, where they have the schoolhouse for the C-130J. And then we ended up being there 6 months. But at the time, it was super hit or miss. Like, we weren't certain if we were going to be kind of stuck there because I needed to go through the medical approval process or if we'd actually get to do the follow-on assignment in Germany.
Yeah, so let's talk about this medical approval process. So something don't many people don't know, and something I just learned is that in order to be approved to PCS overseas, they have to make sure that your spouse is healthy and that the base there is going to be able to support any medical needs that you or your family has. So Kim, what did you have kind of going on behind the scenes during that time that then kind of threw a wrench into this whole international move?
So I've suffered from really bad migraines like all my adult life, and I had like a series of concussions from playing sports and being in car accidents and just kind of bad luck. And my brain started just kind of freaking out, and my balance system, my vestibular system was just going kind of haywire. So by the time we made it to Little Rock, I was just dealing with this off balance, this dizziness, and it wasn't getting better. And of course, like the stress of, this temporary PCS leading up to Germany, I'm sure wasn't helping, but I had gone through neurologists in Las Vegas. Tried to find care in Little Rock, but we weren't there very long. And then I actually ended up going up to the Mayo Clinic multiple times before we made our Germany move. And so to get approved, going through all the process, if your active duty member, your partner says that one of your dependents sees, I think it's even just one specialist, you get flagged to go through the review process.
Mm.
And so I went through a medical process and we were really uncertain if we were going to get cleared to go to Germany. But luckily, Germany, the receiving base, gets to basically tell your base, like, we can support them. We have the medical staff, we have the availability, and Germany signed off on it. So it was pretty amazing. But by the time we left for Germany, I was still having these really bad balance problems and no answers were in sight. And so it was a little hairy and we did the move. There was so much stress, like we couldn't get our dogs on the rotator. And so at one point we were having to pay and fly. I was going to have to pay and fly myself with the dogs privately. And we're literally in line to check in Bryce on the rotator. And I've been calling, I've been trying to get a spot, I've been trying to get dog spots. They don't have very many. And we literally get in to check in, and the flight is in, I forget in how many hours. And they go, we can get your dogs on this flight. I had none of my stuff with me. I did not have the dogs. I was not packed. So I took a cab. I'm like giving him extra money to stay out front of my hotel. I'm like, here's an extra 20, here's extra 40. I need you to just stay right here and take me right back to the airport. He's like, this lady is crazy. And I'm like trying to get the dogs to go to the bathroom and get in their crates. And I hadn't packed anything, literally packing everything, getting in the cab, darting across town. I'm like, can you go faster? Like, oh my gosh. But we ended up on the rotator. So that kind of like gives you an insight to like some of these just like moving and PCSing overseas is just hard.
Yeah,
It is
absolutely. So let's
stressful.
talk about more of those logistics. So medical records. I feel like even in the States, transferring medical records from one doctor to another is a disaster. So did you like physically print everything and bring it with you? Did you like sign a HIPAA form and they just submitted it and got everything? It was no problem. Like what was that process like? Like catching up your new medical team to everything that was going on?
Yeah, it would have been seamless if I had just been all in the medical system. But instead, I just went old school. And I'm sure they do like a records request now. But I had this like huge binder just printed out of all my medical records. And I like hand carried it to Germany to
Well,
just
I
be
mean, at
like,
that point, you're across
boom.
multiple states. You're trying to, I mean, there's probably a 10, a dozen different places who have done labs for you. It's like, I feel like the safest place is like with me in my hands. Like, I get that. I feel like, and you talk about now, like it was like, 10, 15 years ago, but like, I'm talking about that now. Like, I feel like I would feel more prepared if I just had a binder of everything than like a digital copy.
Yeah. And
And you don't
then
want
like,
to redo that stuff too.
yeah. And then like trusting them with it to like scan it in or like review it and like,
Hmm.
and then, so getting overseas in the middle of a health crisis, and you have to start, like, you can't just roll in and be like, hey, I see an internal medicine doctor. I see a neurologist. I see an ENT. Like, you have to start at your assigned provider and you have to
Hmm.
start with them. You have to actually find time to get in, like they have to have availability to see you. And then you have to go through their process and like beg for referrals to see the specialist that you know you need to see. And when I got there, it was so stressful trying to
Yeah.
jump through all the hoops, trying to see if the base neurology department would have like availability to see me or if I'd be going off base to a German doctor.
And so you couldn't start making appointments or anything like that until you were actually transferred.
Yeah,
You
so I
couldn't like
had to
call
get,
them, 3 weeks ahead and be like, I'm on my way in and I need to be seen. You had to wait till you're physically there.
yeah, I had to get
Wow.
there and then I had to go find out like who's my primary doctor, who's assigned to me. The primary doctor I saw was very dismissive. You're just really stressed. And I'm like, I've been to the literal Mayo Clinic. I have all these records. I have all these complex things going on, like begging for a referral to go to neurology. And then just being like all this time just waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. And you're just like, oh my gosh, this is not how the system should work.
Yeah. What advice would you have for someone who may be in those shoes now, where they're looking at potential overseas move? Maybe they have a chronic illness or something they've been battling for some time. Is there anything that you would do differently than you did?
I might have been a little bit more aggressive in advocating for myself. And unfortunately, like the system and having to just work within their bounds, like I just say, like, you know your body's best, you know your needs, just be very vocal, advocate, have your records. Don't be afraid if a provider is not taking you seriously, request a different provider. You just have to be really aggressive, I felt like, in the military health system. Once I actually got in to see the specialists, I was really lucky that they were very good and very thorough. It was just always like those delays and being seen, and it was tough.
Do you feel like going overseas set you back in your illness at all? Or once you got settled, do you think you were able to kind of find out more about it and the management of it?
It definitely got delayed by like several months in trying to like work through everything, get referrals, get lab work, like go through all the different processes. I did end up, it was a huge blessing. Landstuhl Army Hospital has a traumatic brain injury clinic, and they don't usually accept dependents. And it's for folks that unfortunately have gone through IED blasts or accidents or things like that. And they had a vestibular physical therapy clinic, and my neurologist managed to get me a spot in this clinic. And it was, if you've ever been to Germany, the roads are very curvy. And Landstuhl was built during the Cold War. So it's up on this mountain, and like it's designed to like, so it's all spread out. And so when I got there, my squadron commander, like I couldn't drive anymore. And my squadron commander's wife would actually drive me to these vestibular physical therapy appointments. And so would my neighbor. I mean, on those treacherous mountain roads, like there were times I was very green. And like bless them for like taking me into their car, driving me up this mountain, sitting there for an hour while I did these appointments and taking me home. And like without them, I don't know what I would have done because Bryce was going TDY to Eastern Europe and down to Africa. And I would have no idea when he was going to be home. And when I was really sick, he would literally stock the fridge for me and the dogs and be like, okay, you're okay. You got this.
That must have been so hard for him leaving too.
Yeah.
Because as much as it can feel like home, right? It's still a foreign country. It's still, and as much as I'm sure being surrounded by, military personnel feels like you're in America, it's still a foreign country. There's still this level of unknowing that is hard to shake when you're leaving a spouse who's ill and needs help.
Yeah. And we chose to live off base, which I'm really grateful we did. Like we lived in a little village called Schwedelbach, and it was beautiful. We didn't get lucky and have like super friendly neighbors. Like Germans kind of, if they don't know you, they aren't really effusively friendly with strangers. Like they're great friends. Like you can have very deep, loving relationships with them. But like strangers, they're just kind of like, eh. So it took me like a year and a half to get my neighbor to like return my little wave as I walked by. So I was lucky though that I did have a friend we met in Little Rock who ended up, I helped them find a house in our neighborhood. And so she was 2 blocks away. And so we became a little support system of like checking in on each other, going on walks, getting out. And I was so glad we had that because like Bryce and I had traveled to Germany. Bryce took German in high school. We went to go and use a restroom at a gas station like the second day we were there. And Bryce asked where the restroom was, and they gave him car wash packages. And we're like, I look at him and I'm like, you said you even took German in college. And he's like, I did. And I'm like, this is going to be an experience. But everything is just a little bit more challenging. Like they have
Mhm.
quiet hours, the recycling, you have composting. Your actual recycling your actual trash is very small. It's not just as easy just to run into the grocery store. Like I would have to go to a little village down the road and go to like 3 different grocery stores if I didn't want to go on base. And it was just all sorts of challenges to navigate.
Let's talk about those challenges. So outside of the medical, what are like the three things that you think a military spouse should know before they PCS to Germany?
I'd say overseas, even more than stateside, it is so important to lean in to the squadron and especially the spouses groups. And we got super lucky that we ended up with an amazing sponsor, and sponsors are really important overseas as well. And I mean, they loaned us their car when we first got there. They, gave us a welcome package. They had us over for dinner. And then, like, my saving grace of not just losing my mind was there was a weekly spouses coffee that was at the squadron, and everyone would come, everyone would drink coffee, everyone would bring their kids, and we didn't have kids at the time. But like that was the most important time in my week was to go spend time with the spouses. And we did a book club and ended up doing that and doing like the evening socials and going and just getting out of the house to meet people and make friends because otherwise, it's going to be rough.
Yeah.
You're going to be a little island, and I didn't factor in how different it would be to be 7 hours ahead of my family. So,
Mhm.
like, in the midst of all this crisis and like all these adjustments, like, you're spending how much of your day like waiting for your family to wait and friends back home to wake up, where you're like late afternoon and you're like, are you awake yet? Hello, I miss you.
Okay, so I have a couple of rapid fire questions. How
Okay.
did you decided to live off base when you moved to Germany? How did you
Yeah.
find your rental?
Facebook groups.
Okay.
And it was shared from another spouse who was moving out. Very interesting in Germany at the time. I don't know if it's different, but she acted as like the screener, like for the landlord. So like she was going to like select the next tenants. And it was based on like fit for the house and thinking like if they would stay in the house and be good tenants. So it wasn't like fair housing laws or, like a application
It's like, yeah,
process.
I like her.
Yeah, they're like, this house had two bedrooms on the main floor and this teeny little third bedroom that was like 8 by 9. And so she had a bigger family and it just wasn't working for her. And so we were a couple with two kids, had a fence, no kids at the time, and a fenced yard. And we were just like, I could get the vibe that she was trying to feel us out. And so we were just like, we love this house. We could see ourselves staying here for years. Our dogs will be perfect in the yard. We have a guest room. Like it was the funniest process. And it was really an adventure touring some of these houses.
That's my next question. You
Yes.
got there, you stay in a hotel. How long did you tour houses for before you found this one?
They didn't have any availability for pet TLFs, so we got a non-availability letter, and then we stayed, and again, I found it through the Facebook page. We stayed in like a three-story home that had flats, and so we were lucky to stay there. It was very nice. And then we were lucky. We toured hard for maybe a week, and we found this one, and we were like, this is it. Like, come on. And it was actually the only house we applied for, and we actually got it, which was huge because some of these houses, the pictures look great, it looks awesome. You get there, and there's like two kitchens, different stairs. Oh, and the basement door's locked because my son actually lives in the basement. And you're like,
So
oh,
really important to have boots on the ground and to walk the
yes.
spaces yourself.
Oh
Okay.
my gosh. And he's like, and he has a pit bull, but the pit bull's super friendly and will get along well with your dogs. And I'm like, I have Shih Tzu mixes and they're like this big.
I barely get along well with my dogs, lady. So with a car, you guys moved there, you didn't have a car. Did you find out quickly that that was going to be necessary and we need one? Or did you find out quickly that we need two?
The military will ship you a car, one, and that was a nightmare. And so we did a bunch of research, and at the time we had a Chevy Malibu. And we convinced ourselves that it was too big for European streets. And we get over there and there's Suburbans driving around in these little German villages. I don't know how you do that because the roads are so small. So we sold our car. My dad ended up having to finish up the sale before we left because we didn't get it sold. Because again, moving overseas is complicated. They were shipping our car, and so we ended up buying this 1997 Volkswagen Golf. And we bought it off an American from the Lemon Lot. And it was a trusty little car that had just been getting handed down by these American families. And we found a German mechanic who loved us. He was like, "This is my cash cow. Like, this car keeps me in business." But we just needed something cheap and to get to and from base while we waited for our car because it turns out that the government had just changed contractors for all their international shipping for cars. And my car just went missing. And like you're supposed to be able to track it, you're supposed to have updates, and like its arrival date just came and went. And the shipping company just was just like, well. So at a certain point, I ended up filing a claim with USAA reporting my car as stolen because weeks were just going by and my car didn't show up. And then eventually my car just like I get a call and they're like, "Your car's here." I'm like, "That's a nice surprise." And I get it. And at some point, my windows had been left down and the car was filled with water. Like the seats were sopping wet and like getting moldy. And so then it was the fun part of like fighting the system. And again, like so much in the military is just advocating for yourself and saying, like, this is not acceptable, this is not right. So we ended up trying to find like a German company that could actually do like remediation and try to like get it all actually cleaned up so we didn't have a mold car. But it's just,
I think one of the concerns or one of the frustrations, one of the worries that new military families have is that if I complain, I will, or if I file a claim, I will be labeled and I'll have retribution through my command. And I want to very clearly say, like, these are two separate systems and that you have to be an advocate for yourself. And they're built as two separate systems. And to think that the person who runs your squadron or runs your command themselves has not had an issue with military housing where they've had to advocate for themselves, with something that's been shipped, lost, broken, or stolen, and they haven't had to advocate for themselves. Someone not treating or caring for their loved one or themselves in TRICARE, where they haven't had to advocate for themselves, is ridiculous. Did you guys ever have any squadron retribution? I'd be like, you need to knock it off. Like, stop.
never, never, never
Never,
gonna happen.
people. Let's say it again. Never. Advocate for yourself always.
Yes.
You
And
have to.
it's honestly like getting to Germany, figuring out how to set up utilities, figuring out how to even use your trash and know that you can't go put glass bottles in the recycling bins in the village on Sundays because Sunday is a quiet day and that is like a noise violation. You can't mow your yard on Sundays, like figuring out all of this stuff. I think we went without internet for like almost 2 months. Like it went down. It is like a full-time job. Like I honestly don't know how our military members do it who don't have a spouse or a partner because it's hard.
Yeah. Absolutely. Obviously, you have had a lot of ups and downs in military life between 14 years, 6 PCSs, 2 deployments, all of these amazing duty stations that you've been. Looking back now, is there any advice that you wish that a seasoned spouse gave you when you were new in the military?
I got really lucky, and the advice that was given to me, even when I was just dating Bryce and we were getting engaged, was really get involved. And I think I would give that advice as well. So I was really quick to, they even, and some spouses groups aren't open to boyfriends, girlfriends, fiancés, but we had a really warm and welcoming commander's wife at Bryce's very first squadron. And she was inclusive, she was helpful, and there's just something about becoming friends and sharing that common experience, sharing these ups and downs and those just unique things that even your best friend from elementary school isn't going to fully understand. It's just to really lean in. Like the key spouses, like I did have a happy ending to my story. I ended up like overcoming these vestibular balance issues, going on to explore Germany, explore Europe, have a great time. And then when we moved back stateside, I was very quick to raise my hand to be a key spouse because I wanted to be someone who would give back to our squadron members. And like I found that so fulfilling and it was so special. And so I'd recommend when someone reaches out a hand to you, take it. If someone is reaching out to check in on how you're getting settled in, like don't be afraid to ask for help. Get in your squadrons. If there's a spouses Facebook group, just get involved, meet some people, see where it goes. It's a whole different world than the civilian world. And it's the people who really make it special and help you to adjust and kind of weather all of these storms.
I love that. I think that's fantastic advice. So hopefully this episode reaches whoever is meant to serve. The military spouse gets a better idea of how to advocate for themselves, what to expect if they are PCSing overseas. And just know, like, it's never perfect, but kind of finding your way to enjoy the craziness along the way is part of the journey. And it makes you a better person, quite frankly. So Kim, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, you're so welcome.